Every night at exactly 2:13, the same man came into the gas station, bought a black coffee, and left without saying a single word. He always paid with exact change, always used the same two crumpled dollar bills, and never looked directly at me. After the fourth night, I checked the security footage to see when he pulled into the lot. That's when I realized something impossible. He never came through the front door. I started working nights at a gas station off Highway 26 in western Nebraska because I needed money and because I thought the job would be easy. I was 23, living in a cheap apartment above a laundromat, taking a few online classes and trying to save enough to move somewhere that didn't feel like it had been forgotten by the rest of the country. The gas station was called Prairie Stop, though everyone in town just called it Ron's after the owner. It sat on a lonely stretch of road between two small towns, surrounded by flat fields, irrigation ditches, and darkness. During the day, it looked harmless. Two gas pumps, a little convenience store, a flickering sign, a coffee machine, a bathroom around the side, and a narrow back room where we kept extra cases of soda and paper towels. At night, it felt different. The highway went almost empty after midnight. The fields turned into one huge black space pressing against the windows, and every set of headlights in the distance looked like it might be coming for you. Ron hired me on a Friday afternoon. He was in his late 50s, with a gray beard, tired eyes, and the kind of voice that always sounded like he had just finished arguing with someone. He told me the job was simple. Keep the coffee fresh, clean the counters, restock the shelves, watch the pumps, and don't chase anyone who steals. He showed me the panic button under the register, the security monitor behind the counter, and the shotgun in the office safe that I was not allowed to touch. Before he left me alone for my first shift, he gave me one piece of advice. After 2 in the morning, don't make friends. I laughed because I thought he was joking. He didn't laugh back. He just said most normal people weren't out buying gas and cigarettes at that hour, and the ones who were usually wanted to be left alone. Then he handed me the keys and drove off. The first few hours were exactly what I expected. A trucker bought coffee and beef jerky. A woman in scrubs filled her tank and paid with a card. 2 teenagers came in around midnight, wandered the aisles too long, then left without buying anything when they realized I was watching them. After that, the place went quiet. By 1:30, I was bored enough to read the labels on windshield washer fluid. At 2, I cleaned the coffee station. At 2:10, I started counting the drawer just to stay awake. At 2:13, the door chime rang. I looked up and saw a man standing just inside the entrance. He was maybe 60, maybe older. It was hard to tell. He wore a brown coat that looked too heavy for the weather, dark work pants, and a baseball cap with no logo on it. His face was pale, narrow, and deeply lined, like someone who had spent most of his life outside. He did not look drunk. He did not look lost. He just stood there for a second, looking at me like he had expected someone else to be behind the counter. Then he walked to the coffee station. I said, "Evening." He didn't answer. He poured himself a small black coffee, put the lid on carefully, and brought it to the register. No sugar, no cream, no food, just coffee. The total was $2.13. I remember that because I noticed the time on the register screen right above the total. 2:13 a.m., $2.13. The man placed exact change on the counter, 2 $1 bills, a dime, and 3 pennies. The bills were old and soft, like they had been folded in a pocket for years. I handed him the receipt. He looked at it, then looked at me. "You're new," he said. His voice was low and dry, Almost gentle, I said. Yeah, first night. He nodded once. Don't stay too long. Then he took his coffee and walked out. The door chime rang again. I watched him pass the window, turn left, and disappear beyond the edge of the building where the outside bathroom was. I waited to hear an engine start, but no car pulled away. No headlights crossed the windows. Nothing. I thought that was strange, but not strange enough to scare me. Some people walk along highways. Some people park behind buildings. Some people are just odd. The next night, he came back. Same time, 2:13. Same brown coat, same hat, same slow walk to the coffee station, same small black coffee, same exact change. This time, I tried to make conversation. I asked if he worked nearby. He looked at me for a long moment and said, "Used to." I asked where. He tapped one finger on the counter. "Here." I smiled a little, thinking he meant he had worked at the gas station years ago. "For Ron?" I asked. He didn't answer that. He just looked toward the back room door behind me. "You lock that at night?" I turned and glanced at the door. It was a plain gray metal door with a keypad lock. Ron had told me it stuck sometimes, but I hadn't used it much. I said, "Yeah, usually." The man's eyes moved back to mine. "Good." Then he left. Again, no car, no headlights, no sound except the door chime and the soft hum of the coolers. On my third night, I decided to check the cameras. The security monitor showed 4 angles: the front door, the pumps, the back room hallway, and the register. I waited until after the man left, then rewound the footage to 2:13. On the register camera, I saw myself behind the counter. I saw the man walk in from the left side of the frame, go to the coffee machine, then come to the register. But on the front door camera, no one entered. The door opened. The chime must have gone off because I looked up on the register camera. But the front camera showed nothing but the empty entrance. No man, no brown coat, no reflection in the glass. Just the door swinging open by itself and closing a few seconds later. I watched it 3 times. Then I checked the outside pump camera. No car, no person crossing the parking lot, no movement at all. The man was only visible once he was already inside the store. The next afternoon, I asked Ron if the cameras ever glitched. He was restocking cigarettes and didn't look at me when he answered. Sometimes. I told him the front camera missed someone walking in. That made him pause. "What time?" I said, "Around 2:13. Ron looked at me then. Not scared exactly. More like annoyed that I had said something he had hoped I wouldn't say. He asked what the customer looked like. I described the brown coat, the baseball cap, the small black coffee. Ron put the cigarettes down and said, "If he comes back, don't ask him questions." That was all. I asked who he was. Ron said, "A regular." I told him regulars usually show up on camera. His face tightened. "Some things are easier if you let them be regular." I almost quit right there. I should have, but I needed the money, and the logical part of my mind kept trying to turn the whole thing into something explainable. Bad cameras, blind spot, old man who knew the building, Ron being dramatic, small town weirdness. So I went back for my 4th shift. At 2:13, the door chime rang. This time, I was watching the monitor when it happened. On the front door camera, the door opened by itself. On the register camera, the man was suddenly standing near the candy aisle, already inside. My stomach dropped. He walked to the coffee station like always, poured a small black coffee, and brought it to me. His hands were clean, but his fingernails had dark lines under them, like dirt or old grease. He placed the exact change on the counter. I did not speak. He looked almost pleased by that. Then he said, "Ron tell you not to ask?" I didn't answer. The man leaned slightly closer. Ron never liked questions. I stared down at the register and tried to keep my voice steady. 213. He pushed the money toward me. "You know what happened here?" I said, "No." The corners of his mouth moved, not quite a smile. "You will." He took his coffee and left. This time, he did not walk past the window. The door chime rang. The door opened, and then he was just gone. After that, I started looking into the station. There wasn't much online. Prairie Stop had been there under different names since the late 70s. Before Ron owned it, it had been called the West County Fuel Mart. Before that, it was just a 2-pump service station with a repair garage that no longer existed. I found old business listings, a few tax records, and one newspaper article from 1998. The headline was simple: "Local clerk still missing after late night shift." The article was short. A 19-year-old named Caleb Morris had vanished while working overnight at the same gas station. His car was still parked out back. His jacket was still behind the counter. The drawer had not been emptied. There were no signs of robbery, no broken glass, and no blood. The last transaction on the register was a small black coffee at 2:13 a.m. I read that line so many times it stopped looking like English. The article said police questioned several people, including a former employee who had been fired 2 months earlier after an argument with the owner. His name was Earl Voss. He was never charged. He died in 2006, according to another article, after being hit by a truck while walking along the highway at night. There was one grainy photo of him. Brown coat, baseball cap, narrow face. I did not go to work that night. I called Ron and told him I was sick. He didn't sound surprised. He just said, "You looked him up, didn't you?" I didn't say anything. Ron sighed. He comes when someone new works nights. I asked him what he wanted. Ron said, "I don't know." I asked what happened to Caleb. Ron was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Caleb was my nephew." That was the first time Ron sounded less angry than tired. He told me Caleb had taken the overnight shift for extra money before starting community college. On his 5th night, he disappeared. The cameras were old then, still recording to tapes. The tape from that night showed the front door opening at 2:13, but nobody entering. The register camera showed Earl Voss buying coffee. Ron's brother always believed Earl had done something to Caleb, but police never found enough evidence. After Earl died, the visits started. Not every night. Not every month. Only when someone new took the overnight shift. Earl would come in at 2:13, buy coffee, and leave. Most clerks quit after seeing him once or twice. One stayed longer and said Earl started talking to him. That clerk left town suddenly and never came back for his last check. I asked Ron why he kept the station open overnight. He said, "Because if I close, he waits outside." I did not understand what that meant, and I did not want to. Ron told me to take a few days off, but by then I felt trapped by curiosity and fear in equal measure. There was also anger. Ron had known something was wrong and left me there anyway. He had built his whole business around pretending this was just one of those things you put up with. So I went back, not because I was brave, because I wanted to see what would happen on the 5th night. I got there early, before sunset. I checked every door, front, back, bathroom, storage. I tested the panic button. I made sure the office phone worked. I even put a chair against the back room door, though I knew how stupid that was. If the man did not need the front door to enter, a chair would not stop him. At midnight, I brewed fresh coffee. At 1, I locked the front door and put up the little sign that said, "Pay at pump only, back in 5 minutes." I stayed behind the counter and watched the clock. At 2:12, the store felt like it was holding its breath. The coolers seemed louder. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Outside, the highway was empty in both directions. At 2:13, the door chime rang, but the door did not open. The front door stayed locked. The chime rang again. Then a small black coffee cup appeared on the counter in front of me. I did not see it arrive. It was just there, full, steaming, lid on. Behind it were 2 $1 bills, a dime, and 3 pennies. I looked up. The man was standing on my side of the counter, not in front of it, behind it, 3 feet away from me. I stumbled backward so hard I hit the cigarette display. He looked taller up close. His coat smelled like wet soil and old smoke. His eyes were pale blue, but not cloudy. They were sharp and awake. "You locked the door," he said. I couldn't speak. He looked toward the back room. Caleb locked it too. I reached slowly under the counter for the panic button. The man said, "That button never called anyone fast enough." My hand stopped. He took a sip of coffee. Then he placed something on the counter, a folded piece of paper. "Ron still looking?" he asked. I looked at the paper but didn't touch it. The man nodded toward it. "Go on." My hand shook as I unfolded it. It was a missing person flyer. At first, I thought it would be Caleb's, but it wasn't. It had my name at the top. Tyler Hayes, age 23, last seen working the night shift at Prairie Stop Time, 2:13 a.m. The photo was my employee badge picture, the one Ron had taken on my first day. I dropped the flyer. The man watched it fall. Then he said, "He always sends boys who look like him." The lights flickered. For 1 second, the store went dark. In that second, I heard a sound from the back room. A young man crying. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a thin, broken sound from somewhere behind the gray metal door. When the lights came back, Earl was gone. The coffee cup was still on the counter. The missing flyer was still on the floor, and the gray backroom door was open. I had locked it. I had put a chair against it. The chair was now neatly pushed aside. From the darkness beyond the doorway, I heard the crying again. Then a voice whispered, "Don't come back here." It sounded young. I ran. I left the store unlocked, the register open, the lights on, everything. I got in my car and drove straight to the sheriff's office. I don't remember most of what I said. Enough of it must have sounded serious, because a deputy followed me back to Prairie Stop. Ron was already there when we arrived. He stood outside in the parking lot with his arms folded, staring at the front windows. The deputy searched the store. He found no one. No Earl. No crying person. No sign of forced entry. The back room was normal. Soda boxes, mop bucket, paper towels, old freezer, breaker panel. The missing flyer was gone. The coffee cup was gone too. But the register tape had printed one transaction at 2:13. Small black coffee, $2.13. Under payment type, instead of cash. The receipt said, "He knows now." Ron read it and went pale. I quit that night. I didn't give notice. I didn't ask for my final check. I drove home, packed a bag, and stayed with my older sister in Lincoln for 2 weeks. Ron called me several times. I didn't answer. Eventually, he left one voicemail. All he said was, "I'm sorry. I thought maybe he'd leave you alone if you didn't ask." A month later, Prairie Stop stopped staying open overnight. The posted hours changed to 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. I noticed because I checked online almost every day, the way people keep touching a bruise to see if it still hurts. For a while, that made me feel better. Then one night, around 2:13, I woke up to my phone buzzing on the nightstand. Unknown number. I let it ring. It stopped. A voicemail appeared. I listened to it in the dark, already knowing somehow that I should not. There was no voice at first, just the faint hum of fluorescent lights and the distant buzz of a cooler. Then I heard a door chime. After that, a man's voice said very softly, "Black coffee." A pause. No sugar. Another pause. Then my own voice answered from somewhere far away, flat and tired. 2:13. I threw the phone across the room. The next morning, I drove back to Prairie Stop in daylight. I don't know what I expected. Maybe I needed to see that it was still just a gas station. Maybe I wanted to prove the voicemail was a prank, or a dream, or anything else. When I got there, the pumps were turned off. The windows were dark. A handwritten sign was taped to the front door, closed until further notice. Inside, the shelves were still stocked. The coffee station was clean. Behind the counter, the security monitor was on, cycling through the cameras. I cupped my hands around the glass and looked in. The register camera showed the empty counter. The pump camera showed the empty lot. The back room camera showed the gray metal door. And on the front door camera, even though I was standing outside looking in, I saw myself inside the store, behind the counter, wearing my red Prairie Stop vest, looking directly at the camera. At first, I couldn't move. Then the version of me on the monitor slowly raised one hand and pointed toward the clock above the register. It was 2:12 in the afternoon. Not night. Afternoon. The clock ticked once. 2:13. From inside the locked, empty gas station, the door chime rang.